Our guest tonight, we are so honored to have, is Elaine Davidson. Again, her website is paranormalsafety.com. Elaine, again, thank you so much for giving up some time on your Saturday evening.
Well, thank you for having me.
So let's kind of get into the crux of what your group and what you especially are trying to do. When I met you at the Paracon, you had all kinds of T-shirts and pamphlets and all kinds of different stuff. But when we talked face to face, the biggest thing about this realm of work or this investigation is being healthy. And obviously, you've come across something, or you've come across several things in doing your research that people need to kind of watch out for.
I actually come across far more than I ever anticipated. And I really didn't intend to ever do this. I tell people that my team and I went and investigated. There was 5 individuals that went into this house. It was built in 1950. Mm-hmm. It was remodeled in 1968, and the carpet that was in the house was from the 1968 remodel. It had 4 adults, 3 large dogs, 2 cats, and a ferret. And we are certain they vacuumed yearly.
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 Okay.
When we were setting up the DVR system, my husband made the comment it looked like it was snowing. And that was from all the dust in the house. Well, the next day we all got violently ill, and we were sick the entire summer.
Really?
We did this in May, and I think I finally got off like my 3rd course of antibiotics in August. And we all got bronchitis or something like that. Not sure what caused the bronchitis, because to be sure what caused the bronchitis, they'd have to do a lung biopsy, and none of us were really too keen on getting a lung biopsy done. But it's just too much of a coincidence. We all walked in healthy, and the next day we all woke up sick. So I started looking for answers. And the more I dug, the less answers I found. So that's why I wound up going down this path and investigating what could people be getting sick with. Are people getting sick with stuff? And trying to get the word out so people don't have to get sick.
Right. Well, did you feel by chance that with the paranormal investigation stuff going on, that maybe people were picking? I've heard of investigators picking up, bringing home things with them, not physical things, but spiritual things, or things attaching to them, and they take it home, or something attaches to a physical object. Did you think it was possibly that at first?
I did. Matter of fact, my husband right now has a very sweet Indian attachment that she won't let go of him, that he brought home from an investigation. So, yeah, at first I thought, okay, did we bring home something, was there something metaphysical? And no, really, it was something from this world that we could have prevented.
So let's talk about some of the things in your pamphlet, if we could go over some of them. Some of the major things. So your team, you were up there, the place was dirty. Do you think it was some sort of airborne thing? I mean, do you think it was something in the air that you guys inhaled in this home that was so dirty?
After talking with several doctors on the matter, and one of the doctors that actually helped me write my pamphlet, Dr. Connie, pretty sure that we had some form of a mild case of histoplasmosis. People get this quite frequently, and it's one of the major causes for bronchitis. There's several fungal type infections. A lot of those you will pass in time without, hospitalization or anything like that.
Right.
So it probably was a fungal type infection. Sadly, we could have prevented it by just putting on an N95 mask, but we were not educated.
Right.
And we didn't know to do it.
Now, in your pamphlet, you talk about, let me get it up here real quick, about drinking plenty of water.
Oh, yes. You know, those nice little infomercials that say you get cortisol and that's the what makes you fat. Well, cortisol is actually a stress hormone. It's part of your endocrine system. It is your stress hormone. It does cause your heart rate to go up. It causes deeper respirations. It causes your immune system to go down. This is your stress hormone. Most of us, when we're investigating, we're like, what's that? We're on high alert because, you know, you wouldn't want to be investigating with somebody that wasn't exactly on high alert.
Sure.
So, you know, we are already doing that. So we're bringing ourselves up into this chemical frenzy that our own body is creating. And when I was investigating, when I started doing the pamphlet, what happened was Dr. Connie, bless her, sent an email. She went to Harvard and to Stanford for school. She posted some messages out on web boards for the alumni. And so they started sending in their paranormal stories of saving or helping or, hey, I had a paranormal investigator once and this person had this. And one of the ones we got was a guy that was his doctor, but he's also a paranormal investigator. He had a member of his team that kept getting migraine headaches the day after an investigation. Now, I hear this a lot, especially from psychic mediums, on how much they have hangovers the next day, and they call it a paranormal hangover. Well, he decided to do, and this is not scientific by any means,
right,
but he did a test on his person on his team where he took a blood draw, like on Monday. They were doing an investigation on Friday. Took one on Wednesday. Took a blood draw on Friday. Took one immediately, literally, after the investigation, and then the next day. Well, as the investigation came closer, nothing, but at the investigation, her cortisol level spiked to almost 100 times normal.
Wow.
And then, of course, it went down over time. But it's like, okay, well, we're getting paranormal hangovers. This is real. It's not a joke anymore. It is actually real. The nice thing about cortisol is, to dilute it, all you have to do is drink a lot of water.
Well, do you think some people, you know, especially if you go on these investigations, I mean, it's one thing if you go into someone's home, but some of these investigations can go on for hours and hours, and I sometimes wonder if people, you know, I know they're carrying their equipment and stuff like that, but if you can tend to get a little dehydrated, and, you know, when you get dehydrated, sometimes, you know, your frame of mind can change a little bit.
Dehydration can do a lot to you. You know, I'm not a doctor. Everything that I'm talking about here today I've been educated by doctors and safety professionals. I'm not one of them. But yeah, they really recommend drinking 4 to 6 ounces of water every hour that you're investigating, because let's face it, you're carrying around all that equipment and you're sweating.
Right.
You're getting dehydrated. And that does cause chemical changes in your body, which, again, it could be cortisol, it could be other things as well. It can make you sick. It wears down your immune system. And then if there is anything in that home or wherever you're investigating, it leaves you even more susceptible to getting sick.
Right.
Simple act of drinking water is huge.
Well, one thing, I mean, you've got some things here that I think people just don't think about. They're definitely common sense things, but they don't think about. But like you said in your pamphlet, you said about where there's dust and animal waste, especially if you're in some old home or if you're crawling down in a basement that people are afraid to go down into. Using a disposable respirator is probably a good investment of money before you get down in there and start stirring things up.
Well, you do need to make sure when you're going to use a respirator mask that you follow the manufacturer's instructions.
Right.
If you've had a heart attack or you've got lung problems, probably not a good idea. But if you're an average healthy person wearing one, as long as you're wearing it properly, it's going to reduce your risk of getting sick. You go in under a house, you're looking at mold, you're looking at mildew, you're looking at all sorts of fungal under a house. And if there's been I hate to say this, a sewage leak, you're probably looking at a lot of bacteria as well. So those things are things that you don't want to necessarily be breathing in. And those masks can block out 95% of them.
Right.
And it's very easy to put on a mask. I do have a story. It's not mask-related. I can tell you about crawling under a house.
Sure, let's hear it.
I've got a story. Everything in my pamphlet's got a story behind it. And this one I'm telling because I know Martin and Rachel are listening, and Martin likes to hear his name on the radio.
Okay.
They sent me messages. That's how I know they're on the radio. Martin, at the time this happened, was 45 years old. He was running Ironman competitions and running marathons.
Okay.
I've never met Martin, but I can imagine that he's a pretty healthy dude. And actually, at the time, he was starting to get ready for the Boston Marathon. So I'm really thinking Martin was a pretty healthy dude. He went on an investigation with his team. He was doing pretty good, but they kept hearing this strange sound, and sounded like it was coming from under the house. So, well, Martin decides somebody needs to crawl under the house. So Martin crawls under the house. Checks out some pipes. I'm not sure. I don't even know if the pipes were loose or that what it was. But he crawls back out, and, of course, he's all dusty. So his team sits there and helps brush him off, and they go about back onto the investigation. Well, about an hour later, he notices that he's breaking out with these little welts. And his wife's on the paranormal team. He looks at her and says, I think we need to go home. I think I crawled to something that I'm allergic to.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. They go home the next morning, head to toe welts. And he's like, oh, man. Well, his wife takes him to the doctor, and they gave him some prednisone and sent him home. The next day, he wakes up. He's having a hard time breathing.
Mm-hmm.
So his wife goes straight to the ER. About after an hour at the ER, Martin had a heart attack. And that didn't exactly add up. Heart attack. Well, they decided to call in the health department and the CDC. CDC arrived, and right as they arrived, which was about 12 to 16 hours later, Martin had a second heart attack. Well, they were trying to figure out what was going on with him. They did have an investigator that met with the wife and was backstepping where he'd been and what he had done for several days.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they went to the house where the investigation was, and at some point the homeowner goes, well, wasn't he the one that crawled under the house? So the investigator dons on a bunny suit, and that's where he's covered from head to toe. Puts on goggles and starts crawling underneath the house. My understanding is his feet didn't even disappear. And he starts backing out. And in his little sample jar, he has these little spiders. They were St. Andrew's cross spiders, which if you look them up are very low. You know, you get bit by one, you'll get a welt, no big deal. Martin was bit over 2,000 times.
Wow, and these things were so was he on the ground crawling around? Was this like, again in a crawl space?
He crawled underneath the house into the crawl space. And he crawled through them. And they were, at the time he crawled through them, they were newly hatched.
Wow.
That was not dust they were getting off of him. Those were live spiders. They were that small.
Ooh.
And so Martin is alive today, but Martin, even it was about 2 weeks ago, I got a message from Martin's wife that he had had a stroke, and the doctors are believing that, because when you get bit by that many spiders, the venom never leaves your system.
Right.
They're believing that those spider bites are still wreaking havoc with his health, and he just recently had a stroke.
Wow.
But he's still with us, because he's sending me text messages.
Well, Martin, hopefully you will feel better, my friend. Yeah, that's talk about a wow. That's crazy. You wouldn't think about that stuff. Well, the other thing is just, I think, kind of just a general statement. When you go into somebody else's home, I mean, let's just be honest. There's a lot of I know our house can get a little bit messy every now and then. But for the most part, it's always clean. But people need to watch it. You go in other people's homes and you don't know what you may encounter or how clean their house really is.
Well, yeah. I mean, we've been into homes where I'm sure that we've been into homes where I'm 100% sure the person that owns the home was OCD. Because it was just so clean that I think dust was afraid to even show up there. But my team still uses alcohol hand sanitizer every hour. And people, giggle at us because that's a rule. But you don't know what's been in that house. They could have had the guy there that afternoon that had whooping cough, coughing all over everything.
Right.
And it's a possibility, not saying that that's true, but, you don't know. And just using that hand sanitizer with alcohol will break down most bacteria and kills 90% of the fungi out there. It'll break it down so, you don't get sick. So we use it. We laugh about it while we use it. But yet we've had homeowners start using it with us.
Sure. No, I totally understand. Now, another thing that you had in there, this is really a good thing, carbon monoxide detector.
Oh, yes, and there's a story.
Okay.
2 young investigators, and this happened in Michigan. Since I'm not from Michigan, I don't really truly understand what a true root cellar is, but they assure me it was a true root cellar. They were in a home that was over 150 years old, and it was April, so it was warm during the day, and they had the whole place to themselves from like noon till like 9 o'clock at night.
Right.
They were running around investigating it, and I guess the house has a history, so they were all excited about it. Well, one of the places they were investigating is going down to the root cellar. Several groups had gone to the root cellar during the course of the day. Well, near Michigan, it started cooling off at night. The heater started coming on and off. The 2 investigators went to the basement, and they were doing an EVP session, and they played that for me. That was the creepiest EVP session I've ever heard in my life. They sounded normal at first, but about 5 to 10 minutes in, they started slurring their words like they were drunk. And a little bit later, you hear the girl say something to the effect of, "I need to get up and get out of here. I'm not feeling right." Well, she goes to stand up and passes out. Her partner, then gets excited because she just passed out.
Right.
He starts breathing harder, and he passes out. There's a very long pause for about 5 to 10 minutes. And then you hear their teammates starting to wrap up because they had a walkie-talkie, the investigation, and calling them. "Hey, where are you? You're supposed to be here." You actually listen to the guy getting mad because they're not showing back up. And then you actually hear them being rescued.
Wow.
They were told, they were both unconscious clear till the time they got outside. He came to fairly quickly after getting outside. The ambulances were there when she came to. They said another 5 minutes that she would not have made it. So, carbon monoxide detectors are really easy. They're fairly cheap. And they are now, I am promoting them as a ghost hunting tool, because something very similar in Kansas happened where this lady was a baker. She baked all the time, but she was seeing ghosts in her kitchen, and only in her kitchen. Mm-hmm. Team was in there. After I published my pamphlet, they started carrying around the carbon monoxide detector, laughing about it, much like I do with alcohol sanitizer, but I use it. And they decided to, well, the lady bakes, let's turn on the oven. And they had the carbon monoxide detector in there, and guess what? It went off. So, come to find out, there was a leak in the oven itself, and the lady was actually hallucinating from the carbon monoxide.
Really?
So, she wasn't getting enough of it to pass out. It was a very small leak.
Sure.
It was enough to really mess with her head. Her ghost went away as soon as she replaced the oven. So. And I'm calling it a ghost hunting tool. Anything to get people to use it.
Well, but these are the things that, again, as an investigator, obviously somebody's calling these paranormal teams in, calling your team in, whoever it may be, because there's something that they feel is not explainable, I guess would be the best way to put it. And maybe, I'm just sitting here thinking, I think some people, before they start pulling out the K2 meters and the laser grids and all the other stuff, maybe some things that need to be done is just, like you said, pull out the carbon monoxide detector and just see if people are hallucinating or claiming they're seeing things. I'm not saying that may not be happening, but my understanding with carbon monoxide, it doesn't take much of it to go into the red. I mean, it's not a big difference between safe and really not safe at all. It's only a couple parts per million in the air, and again, you walk in there and you, not only may you save them from the haunting or the ghost, you may save their life and get them out of there so they don't meet their maker in the morning or just not wake up, or the kids not wake up.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. It does not take much. Carbon monoxide can kill in under 25 minutes.
Right.
And that's with a low dosage. A high dosage can take somebody out in under 10.
Well, something that we have in our home, we've got an older home that we're in the process of remodeling. Matter of fact, I'm here in the studio. I'm glad there's no cam on today because I am covered in paint and caulk and putty, and I'm wearing old working clothes and stuff like that. We're putting all brand new windows in our house. Our house was built in the early 50s. And what we have in our home is we have a fireplace. We have really we really don't have a good place for a chimney in the area. We bought one of these, and they're not cheap by any means. We bought one of these ventless gas fireplaces. It's a gas fireplace. It's got logs in it. Man, the heat it throws out is just unbelievable. It can bake you out of the room, out of the living, or out of the family room. Very safe. They've been around for a long time. But we have a carbon monoxide detector in the room because, again, it is ventless. And when it's on, it's not our primary heating. It's just to take the edge off in the dead cold of the winter. But we have a fire. We have a carbon monoxide detector there, and make sure that it's batteried up and it's always working. And this past winter, on a real cold Sunday evening, we turned it on, and all of a sudden the detector went off like crazy. It was beeping like crazy. So, of course, we opened all the windows and doors and stuff like that. We shut the fireplace down because nothing had changed. And, the detector reset itself. It went back to normal. Turned the fireplace back on. It came back on, and within a couple of minutes it went off again. Well, long story short, the fireplace, it looks like a real fireplace, and it has these logs in it, these fake logs that the fire actually kind of can dance through and stuff. So it looks very realistic. Well, our big dog actually bumped the fireplace and kind of dislodged one of the logs, and the log was now in the direct line of the heat of the gas jet coming up, and that's all it took was to superheat that log the wrong position in the wrong place, and that caused that detector to go off.
Yeah, but you're glad it went off, huh?
Yeah. Because you know what? We ended up calling the manufacturer up, and we told them what happened, and they said, you probably would have been okay because eventually it would have actually probably destroyed the log, and you would have got a funny smell in the house. Now, we've had this for a couple of years, but they told us right in there, and that's not in their safety pamphlet, that if these fake logs are not put in the right way, I mean, they actually fit into this burner unit with little indentations, and they kind of, you have to... it looks really real. It looks like real firewood burning. But if they get off-centered just a hair, they actually take this fireproof material, and now it becomes a hazard.
Yeah.
I know it was a little bit of a ramble I went on, but all I was trying to make a statement of is that it didn't take much to cause potentially a monumental problem.
Yeah, both of the homes that I told you about with the other issues with the kids in the basement and the kitchen, they both had carbon monoxide detectors, except they were positioned near the bedrooms, which is, if you read the instructions, they say to position them near the bedrooms. I'm like, I don't know. If I have a home with carbon monoxide, like we have a pellet stove, I now have one in my living room. Because now I'm like, well, that's great, but if I pass out in the living room, what's the good it can do if it doesn't tell me?
Right.
It doesn't get to the bedroom to warn me. So I've become a big chicken since starting all this.
Going through your pamphlet a little bit more, you really the one under environmental dangers, I like it, called people dangers. While many clients are of sound mind, others may have some mental disorder. Check out the client prior to showing up for a pre-investigation, and not go to someone's house alone. Probably some really good words of wisdom for someone who wants to get into paranormal investigating. Make sure that you're not, be cautious with the phrase, but that you're not, knocking on the door of a crazy person.
Yeah, unfortunately, a team has knocked on the door of a crazy person. It's actually happened several times. A lot of people, when I put that in the pamphlet, I based it off of two girls back east that had gone to do a pre-investigation with the family. The mother had called, said, we've got all this stuff going on. Well, the mother was slightly crazy. And they were sitting there talking to the husband because she was late coming home from work. Well, apparently she had forgotten she had called the paranormal investigators, and she attacked them.
Really?
She's insanely jealous of anybody talking with her husband. And she freaked out when she saw these two beautiful young ladies in her living room. And one of them actually wound up needing surgery because she had a punctured lung when it was all said and done.
Really? So this woman just, did she come out wielding a knife?
Not wielding a knife. She walked up to the front door, saw the two girls, one of which had just gone into the restroom. Figures, the poor girl's left alone. And she went over the couch and literally just tackled her and started beating her. This is another one that came to me from one of the doctors that had written in. The doctor got to listen to this girl recount and her friend tell the police the story because at the hospital. The doctor went back and simply Googled the woman's name because he's just hearing all this stuff going, oh, my gosh, this lady's crazy. When he Googled her name, it came up several times about how she'd been arrested for assault in bars and, She had a record. She had done this many times of beating up women talking to her husband. So apparently she'd even beaten up a woman at a grocery store for looking at her husband.
How old was this woman?
Huh?
How old was she?
In her 40s.
Oh, wow. Well, again, same thing, and like you said, it's kind of jokingly when you kind of hear the story, but when you think about who knows, I mean, what if that girl came out of the restroom and there she was with a gun in her hand and murdered her? It's hard to say. All right, everybody, welcome back to Fringe Radio. Our guest tonight, Elaine Davidson. Elaine, thank you so much for being here and sharing your stuff with us.
Well, thank you for having me.
What other things, as far as environmental dangers and structural hazards, electrical hazards, have you guys been in places that there's a lot of bad wiring hanging out?
We've actually been to several homes that we've done pre-investigations on and said, fix that light, and then call us.
Right.
That's happened with us several times. We've never had any, my team, let me rephrase that, has never had any bad, incidences per se. And we've been in lots of homes with bad wiring, but no, none of my team has been harmed. Mm-hmm. That being said, when I was investigating, the pamphlet, I had actually 6 different stories on people being shocked or electrocuted.
Really?
They didn't all make it. One guy was very innocently walking down to a basement, and he put his hand on a heating or air return vent. Should not be electrified, but the house he was in was over 100 years old, knob and tube wiring. Knob came off the tube, was in contact with the metal. He put his hand on it. He fell down the steps that he was going down. He was going into a basement area. And luckily, his team knew CPR, so I really recommend teams knowing, basic medical, first aid and CPR. He did survive his incident, the one I'm talking about, but he lost all feeling below his knee.
Wow.
All his nerves, because that's where it exited his body. He lost all the feeling, and he has no feeling below the knee. I could not imagine walking. I mean, he says he's very lucky he did not lose his leg. But, these things happen to people. And what's very interesting is I was able to find the guy in the state records. I was able to look it up, and it's listed in the state records, because they do keep records on these things, as a household accident.
Right.
They don't want to list it as a paranormal accident. It's listed as a household accident, because really it is. Another gentleman who did not survive went into an area and grabbed a pipe. It was a metal pipe. He grabbed it again, same thing, knob and tube wiring. Well, when you grab it, the guy going downstairs flat-handed it, so it threw him. But when the guy grabbed the pipe, he was unable to let go. And he did not make it. So, it's like, these things have happened. That's scary. And to protect themselves, if there's exposed pipes or exposed metal, they make these these little tiny volt testers.
Right.
You can buy them at almost any hardware store for, anywhere from $3.99 to $5. I've seen them as high as $10, but you just kind of put it up to the thing, and if it lights up, it's live. And if it shouldn't have electricity there, something's wrong.
Exactly. Well, again, just now, mold and mildew, that's another thing. Again, if you're creeping around in an old basement, I know one thing that I don't know in your part of the country, but out here there was kind of a scare going on. You don't hear about it much more, but they were telling a lot of people, if you get field mice and stuff in your garage, or in your home or in your basement with the hantavirus, to be very, very careful, because again, it's something that can kill the average person or make somebody very, very sick. So I would assume with mold and mildew and stuff like that, and animal droppings, rat droppings, mice droppings, can be a real danger.
Well, I do know that three paranormal investigators have been documented as getting hantavirus. One did not make it; the other two did survive. About a third of the people that get hantavirus do not survive. And it's one of those things that hantavirus, 5 people can be exposed and only one person get it.
Right.
And they do not understand why one person gets it and the rest don't. So it's hard to detect and hard to figure out sometimes for these people that do the investigations to figure out where they get it. Because it's like, okay, did they get it on the investigation? Well, there's 6 other people that were on that investigation. Why didn't one of them get sick? Just the one did.
Right.
So it is kind of, it plays a little cat and mouse game, you pardon the pun, with them. But, again, what I've been told by the investigators that have done these, all they had to do was put on an N95 mask and use a hand sanitizer, and their chances of getting the hantavirus would have been very slim. With the mold and mildew, we are exposed to mold and mildew 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You don't get away from it.
Right.
But there's different types of mold. There's thousands of strains of mold. Only 3 are toxic, and believe it or not, they're very rare. That being said, all mold can cause irritants. And those irritants, if you breathe them in and they scratch up your lungs or they scratch up your throat, can cause infections.
Well, and I think people don't take mold seriously. Even in a newer home, even in a clean home, it's a fast-growing bacteria, and if you have any open sores or cuts or whatever, even people in the cleanest of houses. I know, like in the home we have, in our older home, I know one of our listeners commented about the electrical. Actually, we redid all the electrical. We put all new panels and wiring and everything in, because our house is, well, it's 60-some years old now. But in our one bathroom, we don't have where our shower is. We don't have a window in there, so we've got a vent that vents it outside, and I know that vent needs to be replaced. I've got to get my gaming gear and get the fan redone, and all it takes is a day or two, literally a few days, and leave a little bit of soap laying on the tub or whatever. It doesn't take much to see it changing colors.
Yeah, that pretty pink.
Right.
I know that pretty pink all too well.
Yeah.
That's usually a form of mildew, and that can actually cause headaches and scratchy throats, and can develop into lung problems. I mean, the house that made my team sick, I never went in the bathroom, even though I got sick as everybody else. I got told that the wall was pink with slime. Since I never saw it, I can't really verify that. But the 2 investigators that went into the bathroom said, yeah, the wall was slimy pink.
Wow.
And could that have played a part in us getting sick? Well, even though I didn't go into the bathroom, yeah, it could have, because, that stuff does float around in the air.
Right.
Mold and mildew are one of the 2 most common things in household dust. And I always get somebody that pushes back and goes, well, I was talking to somebody and they said it was human skin flakes and animal dander. And that's true, but guess what usually grows on them within 24 hours?
Mold.
Yeah. So it's got to grow on something.
Yeah. Looking through the other part of the pamphlet too, kind of in the back end, as far as health and safety equipment. I mean, people really should. They need to carry some of the things you talk about: the respirator, an emergency blanket, bandages. I mean, especially when you're in somebody else's house, if you end up getting, or a place even more so than a house, if you end up getting cut or something happens to you along the way. Again, the K2 meter is not going to do nothing for you, but some bandages or Bactine or a blanket or whatever, hand sanitizer, something like that's going to be a heck of a lot more important. And I think people forget about these things. They just forget about it.
A lot of people don't think about them. The one most important thing on that whole health and safety equipment list, and again, this is available on downloads from our website for free, is medical forms. A lot of people don't know what medications each team member is taking. We don't know, what their history is. And we really don't have a right to know. You can simply take those medical forms, put them in envelopes, and we have the wording out on the website, but it basically says, if I'm found in an altered state, any person on my team can open this envelope and relay information. Or they can check a box that says, if I'm found in an altered state, and the word altered state is important, only medical professionals can open this envelope. And then sign and date it. If you open that envelope, you've now violated HIPAA if you opened it without permission.
Right.
And you can simply regulate who can open that envelope in what circumstances.
Gotcha.
And nobody really wants to break a federal law.
Oh, exactly.
And when I was doing this, and the doctors were telling me, they should know what their teams have, the HIPAA got in the way. We actually wound up sending a letter to HIPAA, the organization that runs the HIPAA website and all that, and they says, well, you can do this, and it's perfectly legal. And I'm like, now, there is always the possibility somebody on your team could not fill anything out and just sign and date it. That's their choice. And, unfortunately, that choice could cost them their life.
Right.
But, again, you've done everything as a team you can to save somebody.
To protect everybody. Exactly. Elaine, the 2 hours went way too quick. We've got to get wrapping up here in the next minute or so. What's on the front? What's on the paranormal front for you? Going to continue to do investigations? Just going to keep on plugging away?
I will be investigating probably for many more years to come. I think Whoopi is going to get stronger, and Whoopi likes to have a lot of fun, so I think we're going to wind up staying together for a long time. As far as paranormal safety goes, I'm going to get to as many conferences as I can on the West Coast. I'm going to go to GraberCon next month. The month after that, there is ParaCon at Preston Castle in California. And in October, I am going to the Port Gamble conference in Port Gamble, Washington, and I'll be handing out my pamphlets. I mean, I have things on my table to buy and stuff, but what I really want to do is hand out as many of these pamphlets as I can. They're available on the website if anybody wants to download them. I'm just going to keep trying to promote this paranormal safety stuff because people don't have to get sick and die.
Well, I want to thank you for coming on, and it was an honor to meet you. And unfortunately, the Las Vegas Paracon I saw was on your list. We always go to that, but it's canceled this year. So hopefully they'll be able to put it back together because last year we sure had a great time. Elaine, thank you so much again. Elaine's website, paranormalsafety.com. Go check it out. It was an honor to have you here, Elaine. Have a great weekend. And again, thank you for spending a couple hours with us.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, we will have you back. Take care, my friend.
Okay.
Good night.